the new assignment has posted. All right. I'm pretty sure we have our new assignment on Google Classroom for ELA. It's called A Blessing, I believe. Has it popped up?
Yes,
it has. All right. So I'm just going to reload the page. Good. So the new story is called A Blessing. It's not really a story as much as it's a really short poem. So it's not going to take us long to read it at all. And then we're just going to do some of the activities that go with it, just like we do with most of our other stories. Okay? I think this one's about horses. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, but it talks about ponies.
Okay. We will listen to it. I feel like I read aloud enough. I don't need to read aloud more. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get this opened up. So our new poem, yes, it's very short. Our new poem is called A Blessing. And I'll give you guys about 1 minute. Go ahead and get that pulled up. It will look like this. It's super short. Even the audio, when it reads it aloud, is only 2 minutes long. And that includes the background information and the information on the author. Pretty much like a minute long, yeah. But we have activities that we're going to do about it. Because it's so short, we'll be able to... Maybe. I don't know. Alrighty, so about 30 seconds, go ahead and get this up, and then we'll get going on it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just hide the top really quick. And there's only 2 sections here. We're going to do most of the making meaning today, and then we'll finish up the rest of it tomorrow. I know it looks like a lot, but we'll probably do some skipping around here or there. And the comparing texts, there's nothing to do there. We're going to read a poem today. Well, this one, A Blessing. We're reading this one today and working on it today and tomorrow. And then on Monday, Tuesday of next week, we're going to work on a second poem and do the same sort of activities. And then after the Thanksgiving break, we're going to come back and do some comparing and contrasting with the 2 poems. So that's where this comparing text comes in, but we don't do it just yet. We'll do it after we do both of the poems. Okay? So we're going to start with our concept vocabulary and talk about some things that you're going to see, some vocabulary that will happen in our poem. Okay? So we're going to see these 3 words: shyly, loneliness, and blossom. Let's talk about shyly first. What would shyly possibly mean?
Shy. Shy.
It could be shy, but what does shy mean?
Not quiet.
Okay, you're quiet. You don't talk. You don't necessarily like to be around people.
Strangers especially.
Good. Sometimes you can be anxious if you're shy. Good. So I enjoy that the definition of shyly uses the word shy. It's not very helpful when it does that, does it? It basically means that you're kind of reserved, you're nervous to be around people, you don't want to talk too much, right? So if you do something shyly, you're going to be a bit like, oh, it's okay, I'm good, right?
Oh, it's okay, I'm good.
Yeah, you're not very loud usually. And then we have loneliness. That has the root word lonely. What does that mean? Apart. And yes, it does mean that you're lonely, but we need to know what lonely means. You're by yourself. Is this like a feeling, a thought, something that is happening? When you're lonely, what is it? Yes, you feel alone on your own, right? So loneliness is the feeling of being alone or isolated from one another. And we've talked about the word isolated a few times this week already. in math. I love the connection there, math and reading. Okay, and then our final one is a blossom. Now we don't know the context that this is used in, because there's two types of blossoms that I can think of. One is a verb and one is a noun. If we scroll down, okay, so that's one way that we could think of it. Blossom is a flower before it blooms, and like it's just kind of like the little bud, and then it will bloom into a flower and blossom. Or there's the verb, which I think is what they have here. I don't know. They're going to use the noun, the state of bearing flowers. So it has flowers on it. Okay, so we have 3 vocabulary words that we will see in this poem. And I think, yeah, we don't need to write down the definitions. I think it's kind of interesting that they have you write down the definitions when they give them to you right here already. Yeah, but we're just going to not write them. I just wanted to go over the vocabulary words first. Okay, so we can actually close the vocabulary there. And then this is the part that we've done with every story, our first read, where you have to fill out your charts. So we're just going to review the chart again, and then we will listen to the story. So we'll put the title in a minute, and then you're going to notice about the story, who or what is speaking when we read this poem. And then, is it describing a story or just one single moment in time? And then, for Annotate, you want to highlight 1 or 2 things that you found important in the story. It can be the vocabulary, it can be an important detail that you want to remember, things along those lines. Then we have Connect. This is where you're going to connect the story to other things that we've read, your own life, a movie you've seen, a different book, anything that you can connect to the story, that can relate to the story. And then this last one, we will write a 2 to 3 sentence summary just of the poem really quick. Okay, so be thinking about these 4 things as we read. So let's go and read this. We're going to start with, I'm going to play it out loud. So those of you that are online, hopefully this isn't too loud, but I am going to turn it up. Oh, it is up all the way. I'm pretty sure it'll start with the background information and the information about the author. But you want the background information before you read it.
Why?
So that you kind of get an idea of where the story is coming from. So I'm going to push play here, and it's probably going to be the background first. So here we go. 1, 2, 3.
A Blessing by James Wright. Poetry. Background. For thousands of years, people have relied on horses to carry their belongings, plow fields, and to take them farther and faster than they could go on their own 2 feet. But the relationship with horses is not only about work. We can share a deep emotional connection with these graceful animals. About the author. James Wright, born 1927, died 1980, was a Pulitzer Prize-winning American poet born in Martins Ferry, Ohio. He was known as a master of a variety of writing styles and for the beauty and emotional quality of his work. His early poems often focused on isolation and loneliness. However, his later poetry often praised the joy and comfort that could be found in the natural world.
All right. So just based off of this background information here, where they talk about horses, and we have a picture that shows horses, what do we expect this poem to be about?
Horses.
About horses. And we know that this is about how we are, as humans, connect with these animals. So, yeah, he was kind of young when he died. But we know that this whole unit is kind of about how humans and animals can connect to each other and rely on each other. So we can probably safely assume that this is going to be a poem about the connection between horses and humans. That was kind of hard to say. But let's go ahead and read our poem. Are you ready? Okay, good. Here we go. And 3, 2, 1, go.
A Blessing by James Wright. Just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota, Twilight bounds softly forth on the grass, and the eyes of those two Indian ponies darken with kindness. They have come gladly out of the willows to welcome my friend and me. We step over the barbed wire into the pasture where they have been grazing all day alone. They ripple tensely. They can hardly contain their happiness that we have come. They bow shyly as wet swans. They love each other. There is no loneliness like theirs. At home once more, they begin munching the young tufts of spring in the darkness. I would like to hold the slenderer one in my arms, for she has walked over to me and nuzzled my left hand. She is black and white. Her mane falls wild on her forehead, and the light breeze moves me to caress her long ear that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly I realize that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom.
All right. There's a lot of imagery there. Like, you kind of have to be thinking about it with pictures in your head and about kind of what's happening. And there's a lot of figurative language as well, just giving you different ways of saying they're happy, they're sad, they're shy. That's true. That's true. So our goal here, maybe for about 5 minutes, is to fill out our first read chart. That's true. There is a picture. It might not be the exact horses, but they probably look similar. So we have these 4 things to do. First, let's add our title. It's a blessing. That is our title. Okay. And then we have our couple of sections here to fill out. The first one is our notice. This one asks you who or what is speaking. Okay. So you can answer this one. And does it describe a single moment or a story? So is it a story or a single moment? A single moment would be like a few minutes. Like they're describing just a few minutes of time versus like here's a year-long story. Yeah. Okay, so there's those 2 questions that you'll answer on that one. For annotate, this is where you want to highlight, let's say one important thing from the passage. Okay, so one thing that you found important, like, oh, this is an important line, or this word is really important, or maybe you highlight something you didn't understand that you want to go back later and figure out. Yeah. Yep, that's a good one if you want to highlight that. Okay. And then I'm just going to write down the connect part as well. So this is where you're going to connect the poem to yourself. Maybe you have owned horses, or you've ridden a horse, or you've had an experience like this with a horse. Yeah. So you can connect the poem to yourself, to other people, other stories, movie, whatever you can connect it to. Try to find one connection. And then on our respond, write a 2 to 3 sentence summary. There are those 4 boxes for you to work on. Kind of hard to see all of them at once. It does. That's why we do all of these sections. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys 4 or 5 minutes to work on these ones.
untied rope from it and it started running off.
That's crazy.
For the second one right now, you wanted to just highlight it or write it down? You just have to highlight it. Okay. And then start working on the next one? What's the next one? Like, comprehension check.
Yeah. You'll do about 2 more minutes on this chart and then look at the next part.
Have you guys worked around horses before?
Yeah.
A little bit? Yep. So if you're going out to the pasture and you catch them, is it a good sign if they kind of whinny at you and kind of bob their head?
No.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from what I've seen, it is, if you walk out into the pasture and the horses are there, and they kind of whinny at you, and then they'll kind of bob their heads, a lot of times they start kind of walking towards you, and it's kind of like they're greeting you. They're kind of happy to see you. But if they just kind of put their head down and start to kind of like walk away, and the closer you get to them, the more they keep walking away, you know it's going to be one of those days. If they're not doing what you catch them.
So when we were in Mexico, they had to go get some milk to like horse that they had. And so this horse, there was only one horse there. And so when they went to go get the milk and take it out of the car, that horse was mad. Like he was mad because they didn't get to go in there. So the man was like, don't see me.
Alrighty. Are we good on this chart? Had enough time? Taking that as a yes. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. Okay. So if you are not finished with the chart, you can keep working on it because the next part is, again, just more work on your guys' part, just kind of answering a few questions. So I'm going to close the first read. And then pretty much like always, the comprehension check is one that I want you to do on your own that is graded. So complete sentences on this one. It says, complete the following items after you finish your first read. Review and clarify details with your group. We're not in groups, so just on your own. Number 1 asks you, where does this poem take place? It does tell you in the story. So write that in a complete sentence, please. Okay. Number 2 says, who greets the speaker and the speaker's friend? And again, it tells you in the story. Then you can answer that in a complete sentence. And then number 3, what does the slenderer one do that moves the speaker? So one of the horses is a little bit skinnier, I'm assuming. What does it do that makes the speaker happy? So write that in a complete sentence. You're correct. But okay, complete sentence on that. So there's 3 questions there to answer. I will leave this up for you. Let's do another 5 minutes or so. So finish the first read chart and answer these 3 questions. Please and thank you. Yep, another about 5 minutes. That should be good.
There's a place that talks about how to be highlighted. I'm not highlighted, capitalized, because it's a specific thing. It does, yes.
Think about who's telling the story, guys. Who's the speaker?
It's a summary of the story. What was the poem about?
Yeah, about 3 more minutes to finish up through the comprehension check. We'll keep going together after that. Do about 2 more minutes.
You guys all know where Walmart's at?
Yeah.
You've seen all the horses beside Walmart?
Nope.
Keep your eyes open over there. They're kind of like therapy horses, but sometimes they're looking for volunteers. People come out and help with the horses. Or, so if you ever want to get involved with that, contact the owners. Maybe they'll let you come over and help out with the horses and stuff.
There's one really tall one that you can see with your eye.
Oh, yeah?
Like it's like the tallest one. And you can see the back over the thing.
Right now with the economy the way it is and COVID and stuff, people are trying to get rid of horses.
Alrighty. So we have our comprehension check there. What is next? So just as a reminder, the comprehension check is one of the graded sections. So make sure you finish those 3 questions for sure. Incomplete sentences, please. Okay. And then our next one that we're going to do is research. This one says research to clarify. Let me grab my book so I can give you guys specific things that you can do a little bit of research on. So usually on this one, you look for something that you don't really know about. So you read through the poem and you're like, okay, well, I don't really know what that means, or this doesn't make sense to me, so I'm going to do this one and research that. So the book gives us some suggestions, if I can find the right page. Almost there. There we go. So there's a couple of ideas that we can research. Don't really have room to write it. So hang on. Choose one of the following to look up. So choose one of the following to write 2 to 3 sentences about. And so well, the first thing that you can choose is, where did it go? There it is. Rochester, Minnesota. If you don't know Minnesota. So if you don't know anything about Rochester, Minnesota, maybe that's one you look up and see where that is, what kind of weather it has, if they have a lot of horses, maybe. Our next one, you can do the social relationship between horses. So how do horses interact with each other? What kind of things do they do? Are they mean to each other, nice to each other? Do they have like a language that they speak? Yep. Or the third thing you can research is the human to horse relationship. So how do humans and horses interact with each other? Something along what you just said, like how do horses speak to each other or something like that. So choose one of the 3 right there. And how many of you guys know they're like 5 to 7 minutes or so? Just choose one, do a tiny bit of research, and write a little bit of information down about one of those 3 things. There is a Rochester, New York, so make sure you do Rochester, Minnesota. They are in very different places.
R-O-C-H-E-S-T-E-R. You guys can see the map. It's right down here, kind of the lower part of Minnesota. You guys, any of you guys seen the movie Little House on the Prairie?
Yeah.
A lot of those stories, you know, supposedly took place around Minnesota. It's kind of open farmland, some trees and stuff.
Minnesota. I always gotta say Minnesota with an accent, I feel like. Minnesota.
You guys get all your work done, maybe if Miss Stone's left me, I'll tell you guys a story about riding mules Friday.
We're always ready to hear one of your stories.
Yeah, but I don't want to mess up your work. You gotta get the work done first.
Like I said, very green there.
You know, and that's one thing that is amazing. If you guys haven't been out of the Southwest very much, if you go to other parts of the United States,
I've been to Idaho.
Just the green that will blow you away. It's just different shades of green. Whereas out here, like in Arizona, we have a different shades of brown. There's a lot of dirt and rock.
Idaho.
Yeah, just go there's a whole big world out there waiting for you guys.
Arizona's pretty much in its own way when you go outside of it.
For the research, do we do it like on the story or like online?
Online. So you choose one of those three things, and then you can Google them to find a little bit more information about them.
Okay.
Cool.
What you do then? What work on the kid?
A couple more minutes.
We have like 200. We have 200,000, like 219,802 people in Rochester. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely a lot of people. You know, not the size of the city like New York or Chicago or something, but certainly bigger than Winslow.
As of 2018, it had that many, but then according to 2010, it had 106,700. So it's less than.
And double the size.
The census too, so they're probably have updated numbers.
Absolutely.
The census happens every 10 years. Also, sound outreach, you can make a lot of money working for the census every 10 years. So I'm just saying, if you don't have a job in 10 years, in 2030, and you wanna make like $10,000 in a few months, just work for the census. Like, you count the people when they count the people, you go to people's houses and you're like, hey, how many people live here? What's your race?
Then I don't
What's
want
your
to do
gender? Just to get like, the count of how many people live in the United States.
And that's gonna cause a lot of doors.
Oh, yeah, it does.
I don't want to do it.
I know someone that works for them. They go up to the door. So she got threatened a few times by people that live out in the boondocks that don't want people coming to their house. But she still had to go out there and knock on their door. And then they would come out and be like, why are you here? So, yeah, it's not the safest, but you make a lot of money doing it.
That's right.
So, you gotta weigh the pros and cons for that one.
Even have a Mayo Clinic there.
Alrighty. So, if you haven't finished the research, that's all right. Maybe just go finish up those couple of sentences later. Now, our next one. I'm going to close the research. We have two more to do. We're going to do close read the text and analyze the text, I believe. Let me check. Yeah. So we'll finish up just those two. So let's start with close read the text. I think this is just one question, two questions. This is where we kind of just think about the story, the poem, and what sort of questions do we still have about this poem? What are you confused about? What questions do we might have?
What is the, like, who is the one that is talking to them?
Who's what?
Who is the guy who is talking to them? Who's narrating?
So who's the narrator?
Yeah.
Who's the narrator? Okay. What other type of questions can you still have about this poem? If you think of your own questions, but you don't want to say them out loud, just type in your own questions. That's totally fine. But what are you still wondering about?
How big, like, how big is the horsing area?
Okay, how big is the pasture?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? What else are we still wondering about with this story, this poem?
You guys understand the different ways to use block then?
So how? Does the, okay. Does the speaker own a ranch? That's a good one. How can blossom be used in different ways?
Somebody that's driving by on the highway and buy some awesome horses.
That's true. Does the speaker even know the horses? Could just be some random guy and his friend driving past and they're like, ooh, horsies, and then they pull over. Yeah. So good. There's a couple of questions. You don't need to write all of them down. You don't need to have the same ones I do. If you have your own questions, feel free to write them down. And then we have the question, what can we conclude? What sort of conclusions can we come from? Okay, so the guy likes the horses, or the speaker. We don't know who they are, right? The speaker likes the horses. I don't believe so. It didn't tell us if it was or was not. But that's something that you could write down in the questions. Is this a true story?
Maybe it's just like that.
Possible. We'd have to look up more information about the poem to know if it's a true story or if it happened to the author. We don't know. Okay. The speaker likes the slender one. What else can we conclude? What about the horses? Think about the horses' point of view. What can we? The horses were happy to see them. Okay, maybe the horses were lonely. Good. So there's a few conclusions. Again, if you have your own, feel free to write them in. You do not have to say exactly what I say. So if you have your own conclusions, or you think, hey, I like this about the story, you can write that down. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute or so to type these out, or have your own. Yeah. Yeah. All right, about one more minute, and then we will do our last section. We'll probably finish a little bit early, which is nice. All righty. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Again, if you want to add your own questions or your own conclusions, go for it. And then the last one we're going to do today is analyze the text. So we're not going to turn this in just yet. We're just going to finish it up, and tomorrow we will do the turning it in. We have your group members, which are your classmates today. We don't have groups. I might have some different opinions about this poem, so I guess we're not going to discuss it. Just kidding. Ignore what I just said. Let's look at number 1. We're going to complete these questions. Number 1 says, review and clarify. With your group, reread a blessing. So maybe we'll just play it through again. And then while we're reading it through, maybe highlight or just keep in mind, we're looking for some words or phrases that help you visualize or picture in your mind the setting of the poem. So I'm going to go back to I think it was about here, and play it again. And as it's rereading it to you, which parts give you a picture in your mind of the story? Okay. Words or phrases or sentences, whichever parts of it help you visualize what's happening in the story. That's what you want to highlight. Yoshi? Phrases just means a few words. Yeah. It's not a full sentence. It's not one word. It's just a couple of words altogether. No, you cannot highlight the whole thing. Words or phrases. So here we go. For now, highlight them, and then we'll write down maybe 2 or 3 that you guys come up with. That's fine. If you want to start writing them, go for it. So I'm going to play it again, and you guys will highlight or type out the ones that help you visualize the setting of the poem. So here we go.
Praise the joy and comfort that could be found in the natural world.
All right, here we
A
go.
Blessing by James Wright. Just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota, twilight bounds softly forth on the grass, and the eyes of those 2 Indian ponies darken with kindness. They have come gladly out of the willows to welcome my friend and me. We step over the barbed wire into the pasture where they have been grazing all day alone. They ripple tensely. They can hardly contain their happiness that we have come. They bow shyly as wet swans. They love each other. There is no loneliness like theirs. At home once more, they begin munching the young tufts of spring in the darkness. I would like to hold the slenderer one in my arms, for she has walked over to me and nuzzled my left hand. She is black and white. Her mane falls wild on her forehead, and the light breeze moves me to caress her long ear that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly I realize that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom.
Alrighty. So, as that was being read, let's highlight them. If you're typing them, totally fine. So we're going to highlight them in the text so that we don't have to type them all out. If you've already typed them, totally fine. But let's hear some suggestions, and we'll highlight 2 things that help you visualize the setting of the story of the poem.
Everything gives me a picture.
Okay, choose 2 important things. The willows. So what about the willows?
It's like the trees. How the trees are.
Okay. So the willows are a type of tree, so they're coming out of the willows. They're walking out. Twilight bounds softly forth from the grass, so that means, yeah. Is twilight morning or night?
I thought twilight was like late afternoon.
Late afternoon?
Already said, but it hasn't got dark yet.
Okay.
You're kind of in that in-between time.
You're in the in-between of the sun setting. Okay, that makes sense. So it's getting kind of darker, probably already close to dark, right? So it gives you a little bit more concept of what time of day it is. Anything else that kind of stood out to you about the setting of the story? Something else we could highlight? We can't highlight everything. The barbed wire is a good one. Mm-hmm. The barbed wire kind of helps you get an idea of there's a fence in front of them. They go over the fence, right? Okay. If there's anything else that you thought was important about the setting, go ahead and highlight it. It's up to you, but those are a couple that we found. Okay. Number 2, we don't actually have to do anything for. It's kind of a discussion that we're not going to do. But we are going to do this number 3, this notebook on number 3. It's the essential question that we're doing with this whole unit is how can people and animals relate to each other? Yeah.
We all have feelings.
Well, yeah, but we have a question to answer.
Especially the horses are really, really excited to go to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just happy to see the horses.
Good. So the horses and the humans both have feelings. They're happy and excited to see people finally. They were lonely. Can humans get lonely? Yeah.
That's a feeling.
So the question that this one is asking you specifically is what did this poem teach you about the ways that people and animals relate to each other? Very similar to yesterday, yeah. How did this poem teach you more about how people and animals can relate to each other? So let's do complete sentences here. Get at least one sentence down about what you learned from this poem. Okay, I'll give you like 2 or 3 minutes on this part.
Very close, but this one again? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, analyze the text. So you can hold analyze the text. Is this a snap coming up? There's tie-dye on it. It's black. And then I'll turn it to this color.
That's cool, I like that.
But you have to put it like on the other end. It's pretty much better. Because we just do I even have a reverse pen and shirt too.
That's pretty cool. Alrighty. So, once you finish up number 3 on this one, that's as far as we're going today. So, for today, oops, not what I want to do. You should have filled out the first read chart. So for the first read, you should have answered the 3 questions for comprehension check. You should have researched one of the things on this list below here. Close read the text is any questions that you might have had or any conclusions that you came to. And then we had 2 questions that we answered under analyze the text.
Is that all we're gonna do for ELA?
So for today, that's as far as you need to go. Once you finish up with those things, those of you online will be good to head out, and we will see you at 10 o'clock